inflates the Beltway narrative about the way that they want to describe the country right now. It's sort of formed into this calcified common wisdom right now, which isn't necessarily borne out by the facts. But let me ask you about that, though. Whether it was because of inflated media coverage or not, when the Tea Parties formed, Republicans rushed to catch up with them. They really chased that energy. Is it possible that on the left and in the center, the people are further ahead of Democratic politicians on this issue, understanding the importance of what government does? Are Democrats going to be catching up to regular folks on this?
Well, I think so, particularly if we stop being afraid. Last night at an affair in Washington, I said that too many of our Democrats for the last 16 months have been cowering behind shower curtains and haven't gotten out there and spoke about what we believe in. We believe that government effectively managed can make a difference in people's lives. And there's so many pieces of evidence to show that, and that government can work. But we don't say it. We haven't been out there fighting. We haven't been out there supporting the president. We haven't been out there doing a lot of things. So I think we bear some of the responsibility for what is going on. And the Tea Partiers have been the only voice America's been hearing. And I think that's got to change. But to your point, absolutely. I think that there are progressives in this country who are way out in front of the politicians, and I love the fact that the Illinois protesters were saying show some guts, because I think that's exactly what we need to do. If we're going to go down in November, and I don't think we are, but if we're going to go down, let's go down fighting for the things we believe in. Let's not be afraid, and let's not sort of let them control the dynamic and control the dialogue.
Governor, one of the reasons I think that Republicans and conservatives have been better at articulating the government is bad message is because the Republican Party really feels like it has to answer to the conservative movement. And the conservative movement has taken that on as an ideological hill where they've planted their flag, and they're just consistent about it regardless of what's going on in electoral politics. Are Democrats not respectful in the same way of the progressive base, of the unions and liberal groups and anti-war groups and feminists and minority groups and others that make up the Democratic base? Would them paying more attention to their base make them smarter about articulating a core Democratic message?
Sure, and also smarter electorally, because turnout is going to determine what happens in the 2010 congressional elections, in my judgment. Everyone gives a little bit too much credit to the independents. Look, we want to win the battle for the hearts and minds of the independents and for their votes, but it's also going to depend on turnout. In Pennsylvania, we have 1.3 million more registered Democrats than Republicans. We've got a governor's election and a senator's election, and of course all our congressmen. If we get a good Democratic turnout, we win. But we have to give our base a reason to get out there, a reason to feel proud of who we are and what we stood for as a party. And I don't think up to now we've done a very effective job in doing it.
Pennsylvania's Governor Ed Rendell, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir. It's always great to have you here. Appreciate it.
Show some guts.
Trying. Today, Senate Republicans Richard Shelby and Kay Bailey Hutchison made a point of talking up the possibility that some Republicans might actually vote for Wall Street reform. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa actually cast a vote in favor of Wall Street reform in a committee vote today. But as Republican opposition to Wall Street reform softens like cheese left in a sunbeam, don't think the fight is over. Wall Street reform is not just opposed by Republicans. It is also opposed by a huge anti-reform lobbying effort that's underway on the part of the financial industry. The financial industry, of course, does not want to be further regulated. Bailout necessitating financial crisis be darned. 6 top banks spent almost $7 million on lobbying in just the first quarter of this year. Add that to the $43 million spent by a handful of friendly special interest groups, and you've got a very well-funded effort to kill Wall Street reform. Justin Elliott over at Talking Points Memo did some great legwork today tracking down the origins of some of the opposition to Wall Street reform, some of the opposition that has looked like it was coming from the left. It's about this group, Stop Too Big to Fail. The group's responsible for a $1 million plus anti-Wall Street reform ad buy, plus a series of anti-Wall Street reform postings on some liberal websites. The group's liberal credentials also used to include what looked like an endorsement on their website from the former chief economist of the IMF and MIT professor Simon Johnson, who does believe that Wall Street reform needs to do more to restrict the size of the biggest banks. Mr. Johnson's photo appeared on this website, this Stop Too Big to Fail website, after he participated in a conference call with the group. On that conference call, he explained his views about Wall Street reform. Now, Mr. Johnson's photo was finally removed from the website, at Mr. Johnson's request, after he got word that this group was sponsoring a $1.6 million ad campaign to defeat Wall Street reform altogether, which is, needless to say, not at all what he's about. How did the folks at Stop Too Big to Fail get in touch with Simon Johnson to ask him to participate in this conference call thing in the first place? Well, a man named Oliver Wolf contacted him. Oliver Wolf apparently works for a company called DCI Group. In fact, we left a message for Oliver Wolf at his voicemail box at the DCI Group main number tonight. So far, no word back. But is the name DCI Group sort of ringing a bell for you somewhere? Does that sound familiar? If it is, it's because you probably watch this show. And because the DCI Group is famous for using corporate money to create the appearance of fake grassroots movements. Late last year, we noted on this show, they were busy doing PR for the anti-health reform AstroTurf organization, the Coalition to Protect Patients' Rights. They've operated a fake news website, which looked like a regular news site, but happened to be full of articles promoting the positions of DCI clients. 3 founding partners of DCI Group are veterans of R.J. Reynolds, where in the 1990s they cut their teeth on the whole not at all corporate-seeming corporate campaign thing by setting up supposedly grassroots smokers' rights groups. Smokers' rights groups that were really just run by the tobacco companies. Also, do you remember how DCI Group came up around the last Republican National Convention? Remember this? Remember the Burmese military dictatorship getting dragged into John McCain's big pile of political problems around the RNC? We covered that last time DCI reared its ugly head. We covered it with the help of some reporting by Newsweek's Michael Isikoff.
John McCain had selected the CEO of DCI Group, Doug Goodyear, to manage the Republican convention last year. I wrote a story shortly after that Doug Goodyear's firm, DCI Group, had previously represented on the Burmese military junta. They'd been hired after George Bush was elected to help burnish the Burmese junta's image, and they ran a public relations campaign talking about how they were cracking down on the drug trade and how some of the allegations against them were false. Now, of course, the Burmese junta was long known as one of the most authoritarian, anti-democratic regimes in the world, with one of the worst human rights records. It happened to be my story, rather unfortunate for Douglas Goodyear, because this was right after the 2008 cyclone in Burma, where the Burmese junta was keeping out NGOs and outside relief workers. So I think the timing forced Douglas Goodyear to resign shortly after the story came out.
DCI Group. These guys' whole reason for existing is to burnish the credentials of, say, the Burmese military junta, or to take corporate money and turn it into fake grassroots-looking campaigns. They did it for big tobacco and for the pharmaceutical industry. They did it for the Burmese military junta, which made it too embarrassing for the Republican National Convention to associate with them. They did it for corporations who didn't want health reform to pass, and they're doing it now, apparently, for corporations who don't want Wall Street reform to pass. That's who's behind the opposition to financial reform that is supposedly coming from the left. Don't believe it for a second. These guys are pros. Joining us now is Simon Johnson, the Ronald A. Kurtz Professor of Entrepreneurship at MIT's Sloan School of Management. He's also a contributing business editor at the Huffington Post and is author of the book 13 Bankers, The Wall Street Takeover and the Next Financial Meltdown. Simon Johnson, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you if I got all that right, first of all. Stop Too Big to Fail reached out to you. How did they lobby you to sort of be part of their group?
Well, I talk to a lot of people, Rachel, and there's a lot of support, as you know, across the spectrum for sensible financial reform and for strengthening the Dodd bill, actually. So part of what I do is talk to a lot of these people. We bring a lot of them on board through the Huffington Post, for example. And we don't always ask, perhaps, as carefully as we should, show us all your credentials, show us exactly who's backing you. We talk to people, and we make friends, and we try and bring people with us. And I thought this group sounded a little off when I first started interacting with them, but it wasn't until I got a little bit deeper into it, and it wasn't until I heard about the ads they were running and the positions they were taking. I called them up on Friday and said, I think you guys are confused. You're going in with the Republicans. And they gave me some, run around then. And then I heard about the ads they bought in Nevada and Missouri and some other places. And I realized that this is a big problem.
Do you think they targeted you in